All right, so in this video, I wanted to go over saving your files. I'm going to use Chris Raymond's, thank you, Chris, as my example. Let's say that, well, first off, you're supposed to do part of your poster in Photoshop and part of it in Illustrator. I did want to see you use both programs. My suggestion was to create your background in Photoshop, bring that into Illustrator, and then do your type in Illustrator. But you could also work the other way around as well if you wanted to. So let's say that I did most of what you see here. This is Chris's poster. He did a great job. But let's say that this was like the beginning part of my poster, right? And then I brought it into Illustrator and I added to it in Illustrator, right? I want to see both of your files. So I want to see what you've done in Photoshop and I want to see what you've done in Illustrator. So if this was my Photoshop file, I would want you to save it as a JPEG. I don't want to see your Photoshop file. I don't really need to see your layers at this time. I just want to see the image very quickly as a JPEG. So what you can do is go to File, Save As. When you go to Save As, I would like you to save it as Photoshop file so that I can see, so that I know immediately that that's your Photoshop file that I'm looking at. Okay, then I want you to save it. Make sure you know where you're saving it, right? And your format is not going to be Photoshop. You're going to change it to a JPEG. Okay, so I'm going to go to JPEG. Okay, now I'm just going to save mine to my desktop for now. And when you save it as a JPEG, it's going to take, if you notice, it's going to take all your layers and it's going to flatten everything and merge all those layers together. When you go to print, or if you were sending this to print, you would want to save it as a JPEG, all right, or a PDF. When you save it as a JPEG, it's going to ask you options. You're just going to hit OK, and then it will save this as a JPEG. And that's the Photoshop file that I would like to see from you. Now in Illustrator, let's say this was my final poster, okay? My final poster I created in Illustrator. And so just because Chris was finished with his, I decided I would add a little bit to this. So I added this like circle in the background and some other words to the right. So let's say this is what I added in Illustrator. All right, and this was my finished poster, okay? What I'm going to do is do File, Save As, and I'm going to save it as Final Poster, Illustrator. And I'm not going to save it as an Illustrator file. I'm going to go down to my format. I'm going to save it as an Adobe PDF. Okay, so what a PDF does as well, as just like a JPEG, is it flattens it and it merges all of your layers. Right? Then I'm going to hit Save, and I'm going to hit Save PDF, and it saved that file. So in essence, I would like to see two separate files. One should be a Photoshop file, one should be an Illustrator file. And whichever one is your final poster, make sure you label it as Final Poster and then the program you're working in. So here I did Final Poster Illustrator. However, if you created your final poster in Photoshop, it should be Final Poster Photoshop, right? And then you should have an Illustrator file as well. I hope that's helpful. We can work more on this tomorrow in class when we begin turning in our posters.